wanted to make a couple of comments before I read the case. Um, so I did get to read some of the introductory material, and one of the things that struck me is these are transcriptions and then translations of talks that were given during summer ongo in the 1300s in a monastic setting. I don't know how many monks were there, but probably a lot. So it's just interesting to think about the context. And that's kind of what we're doing too, doing Rohase Session, being in intensive retreat. And, it's different too. So just thinking about that. One of the ways it came up for me, to be honest, was it's an intensely male setting. And it could have impacted in some of the language of how it was shared. And really, I think why that came to mind was this morning I read an essay by a teacher I've mentioned before. His name is Henry Schuckman. He's in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and he's actually a Dharma cousin of ours because he's in Yamada Roshi line. So he's directly related to us. And I think what I mentioned before about something I enjoy about his teaching, like in here, Keizan has many different ways that he refers to so-called the absolute or true nature, Buddha nature. And one of the ways he likes to refer to it is the old fellow. And Henry Schuckman calls it original love. And so that just kind of brought in this sort of softer energy for me that I wanted to share as we look at this case. So I'm really appreciating, I hope you're appreciating that we're following on one another, so we have now Shonawashu's successor, and so he was the clothing person, pulling on his robe. And another thing that I did clarify from reading the introductory materials is Keizan chose to do a patrilineal succession, communicate a patrilineal succession. So basically from one master to one student through the generations. And some of the material was talking about that there are other spiritual lineages in Zen where all of the successors in any given generation are accounted for. So this is different, and Keizan had specific reasons why he was doing it at that time, which are at least enumerated in this material, in terms of really wanting to show a direct connection for Zen, Japanese Zen, to Shakyamuni Buddha, and really emphasizing that it comes through directly from him. So here is the case. The fourth patriarch was the Venerable Upagutta, which is translated as Ubakikuta. He attended Shonawashu for 3 years and then shaved his head and became a monk. Once the Venerable asked him, "Did you make your home departure physically or in spirit?" The master replied, "Truly, I made my home departure physically." The Venerable said, "How can the wondrous Dharma of the Buddhas have anything to do with body or mind?" On hearing this, the master was greatly awakened. So I want us just to hold on to, as we kind of talk a little bit about the material of what is this home that we depart from. So we know home departure to be a term for becoming a monk, Tokido, Unsui, is that the word? Cloud. But we are all doing this and all aspiring to do this whole thing. So what is that really about? So Ubaki Kuta, there's apparently very little, as we talked about before, there's the case, there's the circumstances, there's the teisho, which is, I remembered it, it's expounding the Dharma. So it's Keizan, not really, he's not talking about something else. It's almost like he's channeling the Dharma, teisho, expounding the Dharma, and then the case at the end. The poem at the end, which Francis Cook, the translator of this book, at least in his opinion, the poem is Keizan's summary of all of it. The case, the circumstances, the teisho, the kernel, the gist of the whole thing. So there isn't a whole bunch known about this master, and maybe partly because he came from the lowest class, poorest class in India, and encountered Shonawashu when he was 15. Did his home departure when he was 17, so ordained when he was 17, and had his awakening experience at 22. So when we were talking about Ananda, 20 years and 20 years, and so it's interesting different ways for different people. So that's how it was for Yuba Kikuta, and there's a couple of, I think, somewhat sidebar stories that Keizan shared about him, but both of them, I felt like there was really a gist of it that really got to me anyway. So one is that because he was so young as a teacher, this master, he basically he traveled around converting others and was very successful in doing so. And so each time someone was enlightened by him, he tossed a tally 4 inches in length into a stone room. And the room, at least by my calculations, take it for what it's worth, it doesn't matter. It was a room that was 36 feet tall and 24 square feet. So every time he tossed a stick in there, what was the stick called? A tally. He tossed one in every time that someone who he encountered had an awakening. And this is such a touching thing that when he died and was cremated, he was burned with all those tallies. So his most significant contribution. And it's interesting for us to think about. I thought, well, I guess I would be burned with my Roxu and a picture of each of my kids and maybe one of my weavings. Just this is his contribution, which was huge. And the number of people who made their home departures was as great as when the Tathagata was alive. Therefore, people called him the, quote, the Buddha without the major and minor marks, which the Buddha had. And I guess, about comment about Ananda, I guess he had 30 of the 32 marks. So, but in his having such a huge impact, he really got the ire of this demon, what did you call it? A demon, I don't know, demon god. No, not a demon god, a demon king. That's what it was, demon king. And which, aren't we all jealous and resentful when we hear about somebody else's success at times, especially about something that's super important to us. or don't we encounter that at times in ourselves, that demon king? How come, how come, how come him and not me? So the demon king wants to get the master, and he creates some kind of garland and says, would you like this? And he puts it around his neck, and it's his intention is to kill the Dharma, but and he does it when Yubakikuta has gone into deep samadhi. So he's in deep samadhi. He's very aware of what's going on, and he decides, I want to try to help this guy. I want to try to help this demon king. So he accepts the garland. It doesn't affect him. Doesn't do away with the Dharma, but he creates a garland that's made of the dead body of a human, a dog, and a snake. But it's there through his magical powers, which, yes, Kazon does put a lot of that in here. It appears as a regular garland, but when he puts it on the demon, and so he whispers in his ear, would you like this garland? And the demon king says yes. And he puts it around his neck, and it turns into these dead bodies with maggots and insects and everything crawling around. And the demon king just wants it off of him. And so he goes up to the celestial heavens, and he says, the celestial bodies, can you help me with this? And they say no. They say, if you fall down because of the ground, you must get up. You must use the ground to get up. If you try to get up without the ground, it makes no sense. So return and seek liberation from the disciple with the 10 powers. So the demon king does go back to the master, and he says, the venerable, say his name correctly, Yubakikuta, says, are you going to ever try to harm the Tathagata's true Dharma again? And the demon replied, I completely take refuge in the Buddha way and will forever cease what is not good. The venerable said, in that case, you must take refuge in the 3 treasures. And the demon king joined his hands and pronounced the refuge formula 3 times, and the garland fell off. I'm not exactly sure why, but it just really, so what I read in the notes is that in ancient India, saying something, a recitation 3 times, was a vow. It was like formalizing a vow. And it made me think about in the Jukai ceremony when we say, will you maintain this? Will you maintain this? Will you really maintain this? 3 times. So I don't know why I was so touched by that, but it just made me think of using that in my own life, making an intention 3 times, seal the deal. So on to the Teisho, and the question of leaving home physically or spiritually. And then the master respond physically. So I don't know, I had kind of a reaction to this material. So I'll just share with you how I saw it or what my feelings were. So Kazon talks about that there's 2 ways to do home leaving. And he talks about the physical. Those who seek home leaving physically, they do not seek mind, nor do they hanker to see their original nature. He talks about they shave their heads, they don't have servants, they They practice 24 hours a day. They desire nothing. And they do not seek mine, nor do they hanker for their original natures. They do not cultivate the holy truth, much less worldly attachments. More and more they become mindless seekers of the way. They are the people who leave home physically. And then he talks about the ones who leave home spiritually. So this is a part that got me. Even though they live at home, so they don't leave home, even though they live at home and remain among worldly cares, they are like lotuses which are not soiled by the mud in which they grow, or jewels which are immune to contamination by dust. Even though there are karmic conditions so that they have wives and children, they consider them as being trash and dust. So he goes on, about how they are, not of this world, essentially. These are the people who leave home in spirit. And of course, in the case, um, well, so these are both extremes, right? And what struck me as, in a sense, they both felt a little dissociated. Like one is you're doing all these things that monks do, but you're not in pursuit of the way. You're mindlessly. I guess that could be seen as a positive thing, but it seemed like it's being communicated as extreme. And then, yeah, you don't leave home, but you don't engage, you don't relate, you don't love. And you look at those, I guess, hindrances as trash. So I don't know if Kazan is intentionally doing this, but it feels like both the home leaving that's communicated physically and spiritually are both indicating a misunderstanding and kind of an extreme view. So then what the master says, it is not one or the other. If it is not one or the other, then home departure is not home departure. If it is not one or the other, if it is not one or the other, if it isn't either of those, it is not home departure. He explained that Buddhas do not leave home physically or in spirit, nor should they be seen in terms of the four elements and the five aggregates, nor seen as the profound mystery of truth. Anyway, I won't read all of it. I think what's important is to circle back around to what is this home leaving all about? And it's exactly what we're doing. It doesn't have anything to do in a certain way with the kesa, with the ceremony, with the declaration of any particular way. It is the fundamental aspect of what is holding us back from seeing this completion and perfection of life. And in that, it's what we talk about all the time, right? It's, if we think about being at home in our opinions, our thoughts, our beliefs about ourselves and the world and one another, all those kind of conditions that we can feel very cozy in and tortured by. I think that the home leaving that's being talked about is how do we actually free ourselves of that specificity to really see how big our life really is. And when I was on my walk this afternoon, I got to walk through throngs of Sweetwater High School students who had just gotten out of school and thinking about them being 15 and 17 and thinking about the master leaving home at that time, being that young. So I also, kind of when I was bringing up that original love part, I was feeling into I feel like there can be, I'll just speak for myself. I feel like there can be a tendency in me to feel like I'm trying to bludgeon this self out of the way, kill the self, to really leave home and open up to original love, the old fellow. And what I was feeling is, and maybe it's just being tired at this point in session, but just feeling into allowing, feeling into relaxing, feeling into softening, into feeling this left home that's always with us. And the beyond the body and mind, of beyond any container we can put around it. Beyond any description or condition or specificity. And that's who we are. It's such a beautiful thing. So let's not hold ourselves back from that. And looking at like the garland around our neck of the stinky stuff or the insects or the trappings of our own, mostly our own mind, and our limitations in how we see ourselves in the world. And just really open up to this great freedom that is our birthright. We are the children of the Buddha. We are the Buddha. So the case, I keep saying that, I'm sorry. I really am tired. The verse, but I'm in good company, so I'm not too worried. Okay, the verse, so this is Keizan speaking here. Today, this descendant of Daijo Monastery would like to look for the traces beyond the clouds and fix some words into the clear sky. That's great. Would you like to hear them? House demolished, the person perished, neither inside nor outside. Where can body and mind hide their forms? So this is pretty, I think this is pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I was thinking what it reminded me of, and I did look this up, and this is attributed to the Buddha. O house builder, thou art seen. Thou shalt build no house again. All thy rafters are broken. Thy ridgepole is shattered. That's talked about a lot, the ridgepole. Mind attains the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving. So the house demolished, the person perished, neither inside nor outside. Yahoo! Where can body and mind